I took some time off of TikTok, the endless doom scrolling, but now I'm back and I feel like I'm in a better place and I want to talk about movies again. So I've seen not that many movies this year. I've seen probably about like 15 or so up to this point. We're like halfway through the year now. And I'm just going to give you like my five favorites so far of the year. And I hope to see more as more movies come out this summer. It was pretty slow. I think the strikes from last year, the writers and actor strikes, have kind of slowed some of the normal movie production down. So I think by the end of the year, we'll have more and more films coming out that I will be able to talk about. But anyway, here's my top five movies so far in 2024. I'm going to go 1 through 5 instead of 5 through 1. So number 1 of the year is Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 is quite simply one of the best sci-fi movies I think I've ever seen. There's so much to it, and I probably should just do a whole video about it. But just for the sake of a shorter video, a shorter review, I'll just kind of go over the general things. On the one hand, it's looks amazing. Like, this is some of the best visual effects work you'll ever see, in terms of like computer generated effects, and just the lighting on the sand and on all of this machinery. It just looks so good. It looks so real. Like, you don't see like any sort of like breaks in the photoreal aspect of it. It's mesmerizing. But visual effects alone don't make a good movie. And I'm happy to say that Dune Part 2 has some of the most incredibly like detailed and dense and layered characters and storytelling that I've seen in a movie in this genre in a long time. All of the characters fit the story really well. I think there's not any characters that feel like out of place, which is impressive considering the star power at hand here. I mean, you have everyone from Timothée Chalamet to Javier Bardem to Zendaya to Austin Butler. Like, there's so many like famous people in this movie, and all of them have the spotlight. Like, I don't feel like any of them are weighing the movie down. The only one that I'd say like I didn't love was maybe Christopher Walken, but I just think I just can't see him in a movie and not think, oh, that's Christopher Walken. But anyway, there's just so much deep writing to these characters, especially Paul Atreides, who's the lead character. Incredibly complex. It's hard to really get inside like what he's thinking, and you know, the decisions he makes are very gray. You know, there's no black or white in there. I've talked to many of my friends about this, and they all have different interpretations of who they think the good and the bad guy is in this movie. So yeah, I think really good storytelling. And Dune Part 2, you just have to go see it. Number 2 is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. This movie is crazy action just from start to the end. It may not be everybody's cup of tea. There's not a whole lot in terms of like writing here or screenplay. It's just a bunch of chaos in the Australian wilderness. Really cool looking vehicles that they've made, souped up, got all sorts of like props and like stuff that they put in, a lot of practical effects. There's just a whole lot of movie going on, and I don't think it does a bad job at telling Furiosa's story either. Anya Taylor-Joy does a great job in the lead, but I really think the person that stole the show in this movie was Chris Hemsworth. I know he kind of has just been Thor most of his career. Anything outside of that hasn't been like as successful, but I easily think that this is the best performance of his career. It looks like he's having so much fun, but then he like drops this monologue toward the end of the movie that is just so good. It's so compelling, and he plays a great villain. Lots of great action. Really fun time overall. Definitely go see it. It's really a shame it's like bombed at the box office. I don't know why. I think it's a really good movie. Number 3 is The Fall Guy. I was really excited about this one. It's from David Leitch, who directed Bullet Train, which was one of my favorite movies back in 2022. And this is just a movie that is so full of just everything you want from stuff at the movies. It's got action. It's got romance. It's got comedy. You know, it's got everything. I think you'll like it. How do you not want to see a movie with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt like playing the leads? I don't know. That was really awesome. I think they really sold their performances. It was one of the funniest movies I've seen all year, and The stunts in it were incredible. I mean, the visual effects, everything on that end. But it was also like really, it was just a really good like movie romance. I feel like we don't get a lot of those nowadays, and the chemistry that Gosling and Blunt have is off the charts. And I think it's really worth seeing the movie just for them two alone. But there's also a lot of other great stuff in it. Definitely worth watching. Also bombed at the box office. What a shame. A really good movie, and you should go check it out. I think you can rent it now. My number 4 movie of the year so far is Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 is definitely a worthy successor to the first one. And the first one, I think, is one of the most beloved movies of the past generation. So I think this one had some pretty big shoes to fill. And Inside Out 2, I think, delivers. Is it quite at, like, does it peak quite as high as the first one? Maybe not, but it's definitely in the same spirit as the first one. Riley's a little bit older. She's hitting puberty, the P word. And she's got all these new emotions coming along, like anxiety and envy and boredom and embarrassment. Embarrassment was my favorite emotion. Let me know what your favorite one was. But regardless, I think this movie is so observant to like how humans feel things, and it's really surprising, and it was deep. I like almost learned stuff about myself. I felt like I was almost in a therapy session in a way, but it's really funny. It's heartwarming. I mean, I think anybody of any age, any gender will enjoy it. You know, it's got something for everybody. You know, I think it's deep, it's insightful, but also, you know, you're gonna laugh a lot, you're gonna cry a lot. Definitely recommend going to see it. And my number 5 on the list is a movie I just saw the other day. It's called The Bike Riders, and this one actually technically premiered last year, I think, but it just came out in wide release, and it stars Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, I think that's how you say her name, Comer, and also Tom Hardy, and it's about this bike gang, I think in like Chicago or something, and yeah, it just chronicles the life of some bike gang in the 60s and 70s, and you know, maybe that's not your cup of tea. It wasn't really mine going in, but I went in and I enjoyed it. I think it had really good performances, especially from Jodie Comer and Austin Butler. Also, you know, I think he plays his character really well. I think, you know, it's not like a perfect movie. It's one of those movies that tracks a long period of time, about 10 years, and it tries to fit all of that and tell like personal stories within that. So it can be pretty tricky, and I think that for the most part, I think it's edited well and balances all that together. Sometimes there are parts where I'm like, well, I wish you would have developed that little plot point more, or this character a little more. But overall, it was enjoyable. I think it had inspired acting. I think really the acting was the strength of the movie. And yeah, I just think it's overall enjoyable movie. If not quite as high up my list as the others, but I might be the only time I even mentioned that movie on this TikTok, so I just thought I'd bring it up. But anyway, I'm going to talk about a few other movies that I enjoyed as well. Civil War, interesting premise. It came out, and I think a lot of people were excited about the idea of what would a movie be like depicting like a modern American Civil War, and had some good performances. I think where the movie came short was it was too vague. Like it didn't, I feel like it wasn't saying anything, you know, despite being something that is very controversial, I guess, the idea of it. I feel like it tried to be so neutral to the point where like it wasn't saying anything at all. I don't know. Usually I'm like, oh, I roll my eyes when people try to pander to like messages to me, but I'm not even saying they had to do something like that. I would just like to have seen something a little more profound come out of it. But other than that, I think it has really tense moments as a thriller. I think it operates really nicely. And I think Wagner Moura, who played Pablo Escobar in the Narco show, he's in it. I think he gives one of the standout like supporting performances of the year so far. Really like Civil War. Monkey Man was a fun action movie with Dev Patel. That was his debut as a director, and also he was the lead actor in it. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a little cliche, but it was a lot of fun, like Beat the Nazis movie. Also worth bringing up that I did watch Madam Web, but that's probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I think the two worst movies I think I've seen that were like actually not trying to be bad were Morbius and Madam Web. And Yeah, I don't know which one's worse, but anyway, see ya.